If you have an interest in horses and love learning more about horses, the horse industry, teaching, or even managing your own horse business, then you're in the right place. We would love you to join us on our mission, which is to improve the lives of horses around the world through the education of riders, handlers, and trainers. So get comfortable, listen in, and enjoy.
We welcome back Christoph Hess today on Horse Chats. Christoph's been very generous with his time and with his knowledge. He's come on already 9 times. So if you'd like to go back and listen to Christoph's previous chats, just go to horsechats.com, search for Christoph, search for Hess, and you'll get those chats. For someone who maybe doesn't know about Christoph, I'm sure that there's not many people that doesn't know Christoph. Episode 702 is the one where we started off. And Christoph went right through the way he sort of started off in the horse industry, and then from there we've gone on and specialised. Now, last time we touched on the training scale, and today I'd like to talk in a bit more depth about the training scale. Now, Christoph, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Glenys, and I'm very happy having a new chance to talk about the scale of training, because this is, for me, the red line of how to train a horse in a good way. And therefore, I'm very happy that we have this chat from German point of view in the early morning and from your point of view in the late afternoon.
Yes. Now, Christoph, for someone who's not heard of the training scale or the scale of training, how would you explain, if they had a question, what is the training scale? What would you say?
Yeah, I just said it. It is for me, and if I explain it to someone who has no knowledge about it, it is quite the red line for a rider, for a trainer, for a coach, for an instructor, when he or she is on the way to train a horse. That is the red line from the very beginning of the training of the horse till the last day you are riding a horse. And this is something you should have all the time, each minute, no, each second, in your heart and in your head, to realize it's important for the way you are schooling your horse. And this red line is, I would say it is a spirit of good riding. It's a spirit of classical riding, and it's a spirit of training the horse into the direction, how the horse is on earth. When I look to the biodynamic or biomechanic of the horse, when I look to the instinct of the horse, when I look to the way of moving of the horse, and when I bring everything together, then I need a red line how to school, and this is the scale of training, the red line for the education, for the schooling of horses.
Okay, now, when did we actually start to use the training scale? How old is it, or what's the history? Can you tell us a bit more about the scale of training?
From the very beginning, it's thousands of years old. Xenophon was, if I would say, the founder of it, and it's thousands of years ago, and I'm sure you know exactly when he was born and when he passed away. And I think this was the very beginning. And but to get a true scale of training was a little bit later, or much later. Especially, it was a very bad situation for all of us, a bad situation for the horses, especially when we had wars, when we had a cavalry, when we needed horses in the war. And the soldiers did realize they would have only successful when they have healthy and happy horses. And then they tried to find a way to get a healthy and a happy horse, which is willing, which is able to be a good horse for the war, and not a horse which is just outside of the stable and then it's lame and or has no condition or is not rideable. And to get a good horse under the saddle for a soldier, this was, at the end of the day, the beginning of finding and developing a scale of training which has a proper system. And this was working quite a while, and more than 100 years, we have now the red line named scale of training. But it started in the cavalry, and now we use it in our civilization and for sport horses and for leisure horses and for horses in all disciplines all over the world.
Okay, so over the last 100 years, has it evolved? I mean, because Xenophon, was a long time ago, we're thinking about...
2,000 years ago.
Yeah,
2,000 years ago,
I was going to say, I had a quick look actually, 430 to 354 BC. So, and some of his methods were a little bit controversial to say the least. So he started it and went through to, 100 years ago. So it's pretty much as it is now today. Is it the same as 100 years ago?
Yeah, I think we have to look into our horse industry, and we have to realize who is riding now. And when I say war, when I say cavalry, then I mean it was a man's sport. And look to England, it was a gentleman's sport in the old days. And now when we look around all over the world, it's a women's sport. And okay, at the end of the day, in the top sport, men, but when we look to lower levels and medium levels, it's more or less only women. When I look around to my situation, when I give clinics and seminars, often 100% women. I like it very much, but that's the situation. And when we look to the horses, we have horses now more thoroughbred ones, more light horses, more easygoing horses, very easygoing to get a good connection, good contact. And in the old days, we had more carriage horses, which people tried to ride. It was maybe in Europe more than down under in New Zealand and in Australia. Maybe you have more the thoroughbred types of horses. And in our regions, when I look to the old Hanoverian horses, they look very much like carriage horses. And now we had the change. We have the women riding, and more than men. And we have these more thoroughbred-like type of horses, or more easygoing horses. That means that we have to discuss in different working groups the scale of training. I would say not every year, but maybe every 5 years, and with different experts, and they bring their knowledge in, their experience in, and as a result, at the end of the day, we get a new, it would be wrong when I say a new scale of training, but a new interpretation. And therefore, it's not looking from today's point of view, the same scale of training which we had 100 years ago. But the systematic is still the same. We start with the rhythm, it follows the suppleness, then the connection, then the impulsion, then the straightness, and then the collection. And these 6 points, they are like giving from Godfather, but designed by people, as you know. But this is a red line still. That is a red line. But the interpretation is a little bit different. And many people do it by themselves. They had written books about it or produced DVDs and video clips and so on to explain it. And the explanation always has a little bit of variation. But at the end of the day, the red line is still the same since, much more than 100 years.
Okay. Now, I'm just thinking about the different people or the different groups of people within the horse industry. We've got judges, trainers, instructors and riders. Do they all interpret it the same way, or is it interpreted differently if you're a judge, say, to an instructor or a rider, just getting on the horse, or a trainer, someone that's training the horse all the time? How should it be used between those groups of people?
First of all, I have to say that I hope that they are all has the same interpretation of the scale of training. Also it would be a disaster if a judge wants to see another horse than a trainer, a coach is training, or a rider is riding the horse. And we had these kind of situations years ago, I would say 15-20 years ago, when we had in Europe, mainly in Germany and in the Netherlands, the big discussion about the German, what is Rollkur, low, round and deep, and the FEI had a discussion as well. This was for me the deepest point when we were discussing about it, because this was a misinterpretation of the scale of training. And on the other hand, I'm absolutely sure that well-trained judges, trainers, instructors, and riders have the same red line in their mind. Maybe they have a little bit different interpretations and variations, but these are only maybe 5 or 10%. But the red line is still the same for all of them. And therefore, I like it very much when I'm schooling at home or abroad to have situations that I have judges, trainers, instructors, and riders together, so that I can school their feeling for the scale of training, that I can school their eyes, their knowledge in the same direction for all of them. This is, for me, very important to do it like this and not to school judges and trainers in different ways. Just have schooling with groups together helps that they have the same feeling of the scale of training.
Okay, now we'll start off, because I'm going to go in, and I know we talked a lot about straightness last time and where it was on the scale of training, but if we're starting off with rhythm, what are you looking for in that first bit? Just get the rhythm established in the rhythm.
We have with our horses, when I look to the thoroughbred and warm blood horses, not to the Icelandic horses, and special other breedings in South America, for instance. But when I look to the horses we are talking about, we use for classical training in the Olympic disciplines, we have walk, trot, and canter. And important is that the horses, when we look to the first step of the scale of training, that the horses have a nice rhythm in walk, trot, and canter, 4-beat rhythm in walk, a clear 4-beat rhythm in walk, a clear 2-beat rhythm in trot, and a clear, and that's very important, 3-beat rhythm in canter on both hands, left and right hand. And when I say rhythm, I have in mind the regularity, the right tempo, and the frequency. And this is very important, that the horse gets under the saddle a feeling for the rhythm, and the rider has to ride the horse in a good regularity, and very important, in a good tempo, not too fast and not too slow, so that the horse finds at the end of the day the balance, because the mental and the physical balance is, I would say, the goal, that the horses find the mental and the physical balance, and they only will find the balance when they are in the rhythm, and then they lose or supple when they have a good contact, and when they have impulsion and straightness. This is very important to find a good balance. And when the horse has not a good physical balance, the horse will not find a mental balance, because one sentence is very important to have in mind when you school horses, that horses want to do a good job. They want to find their balance under the saddle. That's part of their nature. So, and when they are ridden not in a clear rhythm, they never will find a good balance under the saddle, and this makes horses unhappy. And therefore, to give the horse a good happiness, and I would say we all, the judges, the trainers, instructors, the riders, We all are horse friends. And our highest goal should be, and I'm sure 99% have exactly this goal, has to be to make the horse happy. And to find a good rhythm under the saddle is very important for the happiness of the horse.
I love the way that you've explained that, just that whole mental and physical balance. And yeah, it is, I think, to have happy horses. We think about the welfare, but the welfare has to be not just did my horse get fed today, but how does my horse feel mentally? Is he getting physically strong?
Yeah.
What about looseness or suppleness? What is it now? Do we call it looseness? Do we call it suppleness?
Yeah, it's interesting. Also in America, they use the word relaxation. And also the FEI, World Equestrian International Organization, they use the word suppleness. So therefore, we have this. But important is that we have to realize a horse has to be mental and physically loose, relaxed. And a horse which and the opposite is tension. And a horse which is tense never will have a good feeling under the saddle. And yeah, and it's a little bit similar what I just said to the rhythm. A horse needs mental and physical looseness or relaxation or suppleness. And when the horse doesn't have it, you never will bring the horse to a higher level, and you never will produce a happy horse. So therefore, for me, this is probably at the end of the day, together with the rhythm, the most important part which a rider, a trainer, a coach, and a judge, on the other hand, has to have in mind to realize that you never that to get a really happy horse which loves the job which the horse has to do under the saddle needs suppleness. And if you don't have suppleness, you never will come to a higher level with your horse. That's only, and you will struggle on low level, and you will have an unhappy horse. And unhappiness and have injuries, mainly orthopedic injuries or stomach injuries, when you have horses which are not mentally happy. And a happy horse you will get when you have a horse which is loose, which is relaxed, which is supple. So therefore, the suppleness is very, very important to get a happy horse. And my understanding is we want to have happy horses, and we want to have horses which have a good motivation to do the job which we want that the horses have to do extended trot on the diagonal, to jump a fence 1.50 meters, and so on. And this will a horse not do when the horse is not happy. The horse has to trust the rider, and the horse has to be supple, and then the horse is on a loose, and then the horse is willing to work with the rider. And the good horses are working not only with the rider, they work for the rider.
Okay. I think you explained last chat, when we were talking about straightness, about it's not get this done, get that done, then go on to this. It's a bit like a rainbow. Can you explain that? So we're talking about the, contact and acceptance of the bit is the next thing, but the way you explained it like a rainbow, that while we've got these levels and this needs to be established and then this needs to be established, and it's very logical and sequential, but it's not like a straight get this done before you start this.
Yeah. Also, it is not first class, 1 year at the primary school, 1 year rhythm, 1 year looseness, 1 year contact and acceptance of the bit. That's not the way. No, it is really, it is a little bit like a rainbow, but you have to have in mind, you never will get a good looseness when you don't have a good rhythm. And you never will get a good contact and acceptance of the bit when you don't have rhythm and looseness before. So both is important. But at the end of the day, I would say the better the contact and the acceptance of the bit is, the better at the end of the day. Therefore, now the picture of the rainbow is then the better will be the looseness and the better the rhythm will be. Also, therefore, the more you use the scale of training, the more positive it will be in all 6 different steps. I hope this was clear.
Yes, definitely.
Definitely. Understandable what I said?
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I certainly understand it, and I think we leave your contact details, so if people need to get that clarified or need to go back and just have a look at the principles of riding, the book, The Principles of Riding, or But if you can explain maybe the contact and acceptance of the bit, what are we looking for there?
Yeah, I think when I say rhythm is looseness, this is important for all horses. But contact and acceptance of the bit, this is something which we need mainly when we ride dressage. And when I say dressage, this is for me a big process of gymnastic. It's not dressage like many people think, okay, dressage is a little bit like circus and you train a horse like a dog. And when you give a piece of sugar, then then the dog is on 2 legs, on the 2 hind legs, rearing. This is not what I understand when I use the word dressage. But when you want to school a horse through its body, so that the hind legs are active and the horse is using the back in a nice way as a bridge between hind and front legs, then you need a good contact, a steady contact, and very important, the acceptance of the bit. This is for me very, very important. And so therefore, when you want to start a process of gymnastic, then you don't can just ride rhythm and looseness, then you need the contact and the acceptance of the bit. And when I look to a horse which is trained into the right direction, then you will see that this is a very nice process, that the horse at the end of the day is seeking the bit, is stretching the neck, is trying to get a steady contact to the bit, because that's much more convenient for the horse. So therefore, that's something which, that's quite nature of the horse. Although the seeking the bit is not using the reins and using draw reins and other things of the stuff to bring the horse into a contact. No, the contact is a result of riding in good rhythm, riding a horse in a nice and loose way. And when you have the horse, and this is very important, in front of you at your driving aids, and then the normal horse is starting to stretch the neck, is using more and more the back and more the activity of the hind legs. And then as a result, the horse is seeking the bit and comes a little bit forward down. And this is looking from the biomechanic or biodynamic point of view, exactly the best and smoothest and most natural way how a horse can use his or her body under the saddle.
All right. Now we've got those. So I'm presuming that we're not going to be able to get impulsion before we get those first 3. And if we have trouble getting impulsion, we should go back and look at the first 3 first. Yeah. Can you explain impulsion a bit more? What are we looking for with impulsion?
First of all, we have to say impulsion is only possible in trot and canter. Why? Because in trot and canter, we have a moment of suspension. And in walk, we have not a moment of suspension. Therefore, in walk, we only talk about activity, but not about impulsion. So that's very important. And then we have to realize that we have impulsion in all different paces. Also in the working tempo, in the collected tempo, very important, medium and extended tempo. That's for me very important in trot and in canter. And it is, at the end of the day, the swinging, which we have, and we have the swinging in the moment of suspension in trot and canter. And in the trot, we have a 2-beat rhythm with, we say, 4 phases, and it's always 2 legs at the ground, and then we have a moment of suspension, and then we have again 2 legs on the ground. And in the canter, we have a 3-beat rhythm on both hands, and therefore we have, as we say, 6 phases, and 1 phase is a moment of suspension. So, and the goal has to be to give the horses a good feeling that they have quite a long moment of suspension, because this is very good for the expression. And when we see a horse with a long moment of suspension, with a good, and I would want to add the word elasticity, that's very, very good for the horses. And because elasticity is important, if this works, then the horse will be healthy, because the elasticity is very important, not to get orthopedic problems. Therefore, it is very important to give the horses a good feeling for a long moment of suspension, and a good coming back on the ground with elasticity, and a good swinging over the back. And the more the horse is loose, supple, relaxed in the body, especially in the back, the better the horse has to start to swing and to build up the back as the bridge between the hind legs and the front legs. And this is for me very important. That the rider has the feeling of swinging in the saddle, has a feeling to get more deep into the saddle. And that is when you have this feeling, then it's the right feeling. And and the horse is willing to give him a good swinging, so that he is able to use his pelvis in a nice way in the canter, and especially, which is sometimes more a challenge in the trot, not using rising trot, but using sitting trot, with a good supple pelvis to swing into the horse's movement. And when you do this, then you produce, at the end of the day, a good impulsion. And the impulsion has to come from behind. The impulsion has to have activity in the hind legs, and the activity in the hind legs has to swing over the back, into the neck, through poll, into the horse's mouth. And when you have this picture in your head and understand this system, then you understand more and more the spirit of the scale of training.
It's lovely the way that you use the words to explain this. You know, I know that English is a second language, but you just, it's all, you can see it and feel it. You know, if someone's thinking about their own horse, and are they actually getting this feeling? Can they feel it? And if you can't, go back, start at the beginning again and say, is the rhythm established? Do I have the looseness, suppleness, relaxation? Is my horse happily, accepting the bit? Yeah. Now, last time we talked about straightness. We went into a lot more depth, a lot more detail. But for people who haven't listened to that previous episode, which is episode 834, if you were explaining straightness, what are we looking for? What are the main points that we're looking for in straightness?
Yeah, also straightness is, and I think I have to add one sentence before, we have to realize that all horses are crooked, and that is a lifelong process for a rider, for a trainer, and for an instructor to have this in mind. And judges have to realize that all horses are crooked. And it's a little bit like we are better with left hand or with right hand. And not many people are able to use both hands in a similar way, or feet, as we see it in the European soccer championships, which we have now. Some are good with the left leg, others are good with the right leg. Not very many are good with both legs. So therefore, that's a little bit similar with us as well. And horses are crooked by nature. And one of the goals is to straighten the horse. And this is not just because the judges want to see a straight horse. And it's necessary for some exercises, or for most of the, or for all exercises. And no, it is first of all something which you have to realize you needed a straight horse, because it is something which is important to have a healthy horse. If the horse is crooked, then you get a problem because the static of the horse is not balanced. And a horse which is not balanced will use one leg more than the other, and will bring more, or put more weight on one leg. And when you bring more weight on one leg, it can be the problem that at the end of the day, this leg will get an injury. So therefore, looking from the health's point of view, we need a straight horse. And this is the first thing which is important. The second thing is, a crooked horse will not be an obedient horse. And when I did say in the beginning that when we work horses with a scale of training, that balance is the highest goal, then I would say the second very important sentence, that very important is that we have an obedient horse. And the more the horse is trained with the scale of training, or into the direction of the scale of training, the more obedient the horse will be. And a horse which is not straight, a horse which is crooked, will never be a true obedient horse. Also, to get an obedient horse, you have to have the horse straight. And this is, for me, very important. So therefore, we need to write many exercises to straighten the horse. And we have always to have in mind, and this was what I did say in our last podcast, that I said we have always to bring the forehand in front of the hind legs, and not trying to bring the hind legs behind the forehand. That's a very important sentence which we have to have in mind when we talk about straightness. And this is something the riders and the trainers and the coaches have to realize. Therefore, I repeat it again, to bring the forehand in front of the hind legs. And then maybe we can talk later on about some exercises, but this was something we did when we had our last podcast.
You know, at this point, if people are thinking, I really would like to know, because we went into a lot about the, just the training of the rider and the training of the horse, and a lot more about the straightness there. So, if you're at that point where you think, well, the next thing's collection, which we'll talk about, but if you're looking for collection and you sort of think everything's going well, but you haven't got the straightness, go back and listen to that chat. And I think, as I said, it was 8:34. So the next thing, collection, so people say, oh, can you make my horse dance? And you go, well, which sort of dancing do you want? Do you want the one-time changes? Oh, no, that's skipping. I want them to dance where they're, trotting on the spot. Takes a bit of collection, it takes a little bit of strength on the horse. But if you can explain collection, and it takes the previous 5 steps as well to get them well established, but collection. Can you talk a bit more about collection?
Yeah, I can. And I think when we talk about collection, we have to realize that nothing will work without clearism, with looseness, with contact and acceptance of the bit, impulsion, and without straightness. If one of these points of the scale of training or pyramid of training is not working, please, please, please forget to start with collection. And therefore, if someone comes and said, oh, there's a good rider, and maybe he can train my horse in flying changes at every stride, as an example, or as half steps or piaffe on the spot. And the rider, and when he is an honest rider, and I'm sure riders who are on this high level, they are honest riders, they would say, okay, fine, I look to your horse. And when he sees, okay, the horse is not in rhythm, the horse is full of tension, there is not an acceptance of the bit, horse has no impulsion, horse is totally crooked, he would say, oh, sorry, I have no chance to train your horse in a short time to the level you want to see the horse. This rider will say, oh, sorry, I have to start with the basics again. We need the rhythm, we need the looseness, we need the contact and the acceptance of the bit, we need the impulsion, and we have to make the horse straight. And then we can, when we have this under control in a positive way, then we can start with the collection, with the collected word or the work or the training when we need collection. And this is very important to realize it. And we are not people who train the horse some tricks. No, I always say we have to we have to get an understanding that the exercises like flying a single flying change or flying change at every second stride or at every stride is the result of perfection of basic training. And when the basic training, especially to the first 5 steps of the training scale, are not well established, developed, you have no chance to come, to the, I would now say, to the tricks, as many people say, to special movements, to special exercises. That is something which we have to realize. And therefore, I think, the collection is really the highest point of the pyramid of the training scale. Not all riders come to this level that they are able to collect their horses, and I would say that the riders able to collect their horse means that the rider has to train very much himself or herself. And many riders always think, oh, now I'm on the level and I want to collect my horse, but they have not the position, not the supple and position themselves, a balanced position in the saddle to be able to start the collection. So therefore, the higher you are in the level of the training, the better you have to be as a rider. And the good riders are very, very critical with themselves. And they are, at the end of the day, the best trained riders. And the best trained riders, are able to start with collection.
Yep. Look, I think, Christoph, you've gone through this, and the whole time you've sort of had an underlying message, and that's the mental and physical balance, that horses want to do a good job. So if you keep looking after them and keep that mental and physical balance through those scales, then, anything's possible. But I think that's, a very clear message about this. We call it basic training, foundational training, and just how important it is before the tricks. Before we start the tricks.
And tricks have to be part of it. It's a result of it. And years ago, I had a seminar or several seminars with Klaus Balkenhol, the former German national coach, and he was the American national coach. He's now 80 plus, and he's still a great horseman. And the title of our seminar was Grand Prix is basic work or the foundation work or the fundamental work. When you have the basics under control, then you come to the highest level, to the Grand Prix. But when you don't have the basics under control, you never ever will come to a proper Grand Prix. Then you are only sitting on the horse and trying to manage something. But when you train the horse, as we had discussed it now the last 40 minutes, then when you do this properly and when you are really balanced and well, good supple and have a nice position in the saddle, an effective position in the saddle, the horse in front of you, then you are able to produce horses till Grand Prix level with a high level of collection.
That's just a really good message. Yeah, Christoph, I can't thank you enough, that your time, the knowledge that you give, and I think the amount of people that really appreciate you coming on and getting on the chat just to sort of go through this and so much more fun too, rather than reading books. You can do this as you're driving, It's just a much easier medium to get and to gain all that knowledge. Yeah. Christoph, thank you again. Now, if people like to contact you, best way?
Yes, although you have my contact details.
I do.
Although you can give my phone number. I'm good to get when someone has a question via WhatsApp. Text message is good, and I got several text messages. Meanwhile, this is good. Or you can give my email address. Both is possible. Sometimes it's a little bit easier for me to use the WhatsApp chats, the verbal or the spoken, the voice messages, or a proper chat, written chat. Both is possible. And if someone has a question or someone has to criticize something or to add something, I'm open in all directions. And I love to start a discussion after this podcast. I'm open for this.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much, Christoph. And we will chat to you again very soon.
Thank you very much indeed. And all the best for you, and stay healthy. And I'm looking forward.
If you've enjoyed this chat, then please comment, rate and subscribe. If you'd like any changes or recommendations for guests, then please contact us through horsechats.com. And while you're online, have a look at the government-accredited courses at internationalhorsecollege.com. Registered Training Organisation 31352.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.